Hi, fellow audiophiles, it's Wave Theory, back to talk about the Meze Empyrean Elite, which I did a first impressions video for a while ago, and I will link to that in the description below. I also have a very thorough written review published on Hi-Fi Guides Forum and Headphone, which I will put links to down below as well. And so in this video here, I just want to kind of hit the highlights of what I said in that written review, and if that whets your appetite for more detail, then please do read those written reviews. So, Meze Empyrean Elite, the 4,000 US dollar flagship model from Meze. Now, the driver tech in here, I'm not going to go into huge details, but I think it's important to talk about it briefly because I think it does impact the way this thing sounds. They call the driver an isodynamic driver in here, and it's an evolution of the driver tech that was in the original Empyrean. And what it does is my read on it, and again, this is me extrapolating and interpreting what Meze has stated publicly on their website and elsewhere, like what they are trying to do with this driver tech. Now, what they are essentially trying to do, I think, and again, this could be wrong, but I think is turn a single planar magnetic driver into essentially a two-way design in much the way that a loudspeaker often uses a separate woofer and tweeter to reproduce different bands of the audio spectrum. Now, in a speaker, at least good ones, they have crossovers to filter the low frequencies out of the tweeter and vice versa for the woofer. There's no evidence that I can see of a crossover in here. It's just that different parts of the membrane of the planar magnetic driver are emphasizing different frequencies. And those regions that emphasize different parts of the frequencies are placed different distances from the ear. Now, I think that does have some audible effects. So we'll get to that here in a moment. Now, build quality, fit and finish, absolutely worth the asking price, I think. The comfort is great. I mean, like all high-end headphones, it looks ridiculous when it's on your head. See, hilarious, go ahead and laugh. But like even the funny-shaped suspension strap on the headband, like, is just designed to contour that to the head, as you saw, and it does a great job of distributing the pressure around the side of the head well and all of that. But everything else, like the swivel of the ear cups here, the telescoping mechanism here to expand it, for head size and all of that. Even the pad mounting system, which is just magnetic, okay, just pops right off. They give you two sets of pads, okay, leather that are that thick, velour that are that thick, okay, and they pop on and off magnetically with ease. The entire build just strikes an excellent balance between being like easy enough to move around and use, but just also feeling well done. Like the swivel of the cups, like it doesn't swivel around on you. When you hold it here, it's just great balance and well thought out features and ergonomics on this headphone, I think. So that regard, it is worth the asking price on that. Like, you get the build quality you would expect for the price. At least I think you do. Okay, the sound is where things get interesting. And again, I'm going to try to limit myself to highlights in a quick-ish video and leave it up to my written work to do the deep dive on all of this for those who want to. You get two different sound signatures because of the two pads. The velours here tilt the entire signature a bit brighter. The leathers tilt it a little bit warmer. In either case, you still get pretty good and airy treble detail, clarity, pretty good treble timbre, all of that. The leathers give you very good bass extension and some pretty good bass punch and some pretty good bass pitch definition. The velours have a pretty aggressive roll-off in the bass below 100-ish hertz, right? It's not quite a brick wall, but it's a pretty aggressive roll-off down there, and I think it also gets a bit one-notey in the sub-bass that is present on the velours. Now, in my first impressions video, I mentioned how this headphone had a bit of a veil to it, and like it just sounded like something was missing. That was based off of the leather pads. But I still think that no matter which pad type you use here, the leather or the velours, there is a bit of a veil. Now, the veil almost entirely disappears with the velours. Okay? And in fact, just the detail and clarity is better with the velours everywhere from about 100 hertz up. Okay, the detail and the clarity is better. Both pads will give you a nice wide soundstage, big, almost hi-fi-man like size of soundstage. The velours do a better job of the imaging and separation within that soundstage, so it's more believable in that regard. Okay, so then, so it's up to you what your trade-off is there. Then, there's also a physical comfort aspect. There's been some complaints about people's ears touching the inside of the cup, okay, with the leathers because they're not very deep. But then I think you sacrifice a little bit of ear area with the velours in comparison. But still, sonically, there is a difference there. And so the bass presence and the punch and the slam and all of that are different. So I generally preferred the velours because of the increase in detail and clarity and all of that, and the more believable spatial presentation from 100 hertz on up. So then I got to thinking, well, what if I EQ'd the bass on this a little bit? Could I have my cake and eat it too and get that bass back in regard? Because I have $4,000 cake, right? And so I tried a few different EQs. And again, please see my written review for the details on that. But it didn't seem to matter the type of EQ I used, be it software or hardware, or whether it was an additive EQ or a subtractive EQ. It seems that the ratio of bass to everything else, meaning the relative presence of the amount of bass compared to the rest of the frequency range, is what determines if there is a veil or not. Because the veil comes back with the velours when the bass below about 100 hertz is boosted, or everything else is attenuated, and you just leave the bass where it normally is in the stock tuning. So that was indicating to me that there is probably some kind of phasing weirdness happening. Again, because of the way the driver is constructed, and because the mids and treble are placed at one spot on the membrane, at least emphasized in one spot, and the bass is emphasized in another, there's some distance which leads to timing and phasing relationships happening there that I think is causing that veil. So again, you can read more about that in my written review if you're curious as to why I'm saying that and how I think that I figured that out. And so that leads me to this product, at least sonically, is not quite there for $4,000, at least not for my money. Now, it does some things, like the tuning is really wonderful. I overall prefer this tuning, but I prefer this clarity. But the tuning is really wonderful, more of a consumer-oriented tuning, but I like that, and I think a lot of other audiophiles do too. It's well balanced for a wide range of musical genres with that tuning. It's also more relaxed in its presentation, pretty good detail, but it's not detail forward, so it doesn't become distracting or fatiguing in that way. So it does do some things right. The problem is I have this around. This is my Hi-Fi-Man HE1000 V2. And like bias declared, I love this headphone. It is my personal highest end headphone that I put some time into getting a good deal on and building a signal chain for and that sort of thing. I think this one is more technically proficient at $3,000 new price than this one is at $4,000 new price when you consider all of the technicalities. The Meze does do a few things that are at least as good, if not just slightly better, than this one in some very narrow frequency ranges, at least to my ear. But from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, if you can still hear that range, okay, very few can, I can't, okay, but over the entire audible range, this one just brings it at a higher level of quality, or at least equal level of quality, more often than this one does. More clarity, more detail, more texture, more believable staging, a little bit better timbre, and definitely no veil here, where this one struggles in that area. So, Meze, I'm rooting for you. I hope that you figure this out. Your driver tech is an interesting twist on things. I don't know that you're quite there yet sonically, but I mean, you've got the other stuff, the build, the fit, the finish, the comfort. You've got that down. Okay. Little bit of work to do yet on those sonics, but thanks for trying. Very interesting take, and I think some people will still really like this headphone, so I hope enough people like it and buy it that Meze gets another crack at this and can solve some of that, what I think is phasing issues. They're in kind of the lower half of the male vocal range frequency-wise. So thanks for watching all. Again, check out my written video of this, or written review of this headphone, and this is Wave Theory. Until next time, enjoy the music.